winded. And so he has come to just kind of informally share his story with you. He's going to talk with you in about a half hour. The second part of the period, you guys can go get your lunch. If you want to bring it up here and talk more with Officer Sharpe and each other, you can. If you just want to go down, get your lunch, and eat in the cafeteria, that's fine too. Does that make sense? Yeah. So he is the first of our speakers coming in this year. We have like 2 a month from now until the end of the year. And we try to pick some people that would be just unique stories. So as you're listening to him, think about if this is something that you think friends might enjoy too, so that you can kind of get the word out about it. Make sense? All right, Officer Sharpe, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How y'all doing? That's good. Well, you know, I'm excited to be back here. I've been here before, so when I was kind of excited because I think we had to change the date, but I was like, man, I can't wait to get back to Canton South. I know a lot of kids that kind of still are in the city of Canton that I go and visit, and they go to school here. So what I want to say real quick is that I know people look at me today and they see like, oh, this guy's a success story. But I can tell you from the beginning, growing up in my neighborhood, I was deemed I was not going to be a success story. Sometimes in life, people put labels on people because you'll look at somebody and be like, you know, maybe because they're a different race or because they're gender, you know, like football players. Football players, if they see a girl come out for the football team, the very first thing they do is they put this prejudice or this, they just have this certain feeling about them, okay? And that was me growing up in my neighborhood. I grew up in East Akron, Ohio. Went to East High School, and I grew up around a lot of gangs. I grew up around a lot of drugs and bad influences. I grew up around people who bullied a lot of people. And I can tell you, I know you look at me today and it's like, well, this guy, he's a big guy, who would bully him? Well, I wasn't always this big. I didn't hit a growth spurt until my freshman year, at the end of my freshman year in high school. So I was this little round, chubby kid with big cheeks, and I had to shop in this husky section. And I know you probably don't know what the husky section is, but I was a husky kid. And the husky kid means I was thick. I was busting at the seams, and I'm telling you, I just had these hips, I just had this pudginess about me. So I was an easy target for people to pick on me, you know? And so a lot of the things that I do today is I try to promote and I say, hey, listen, you know, just be kind to people. Because I know a lot of times when people were being mean to me, I could tell you that it really affected me. There's many times where I would go home and I would go and sit in my room, and I was just telling them I'm an introvert. You know, I just kind of keep to myself, and a lot of that, I think I just wasn't born. I think a lot of things that were happening to me in my life caused me to be that way. I'm the one person that would come home, I would go up in my room, and my mom will come up there just to check on me because she doesn't hear anything coming from my room. I was that kind of kid because I was experiencing so many different things. So a lot of the things that were happening in my neighborhood, I was watching my friends, they were turning into drug dealers, they were trying to live that life as gangbangers, and I wanted to have no part of it whatsoever. I didn't want to have any part of it. And so I had to find a way. I said, what is going to be the key to my success in life? Am I going to be like the rest of my friends? Or am I going to get my life together and I'm going to get on the right track and do something with myself? So when I decided to make up my mind to do that, I think it was really when I saw one of my friends, when I was in middle school, I saw one of my friends, he came to school and he was bragging and he was like, oh, I just stole this car. And I'm like, he's like, yeah. He was like, y'all want to go for a ride? And I'm like, he said, come on, Sharpe. And I'm like, no, bro, I don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew my mom would beat the brakes off of me if she caught me in a stolen car. So a couple of my other friends went. So they was flying around Goodyear Middle School. They flying around, they was throwing up signs and stuff like that, hanging out the window, hanging out the cars. Well, the police, somebody called the police. The police get behind them, they start chasing them. They flying, they trying to take off, they trying to get to a position where they can jump out of the car. Well, he lost control of that car and ran into a tree. That steering pole hit him in his chest. It went down and caved his whole chest in. To this day. To this day. And I'm sitting here like, I remember it broke his ankle in like 3-4 different places. And I was like, man, if I would have been in that car, that could have been me. So that really helped me make my mind up and say, you know what am I going to do? What is my plan? Because the problem, I think, when you're young, you don't have a plan. And I'm telling you, I had to develop a plan. Because I tell people all the time, like some of my friends, they ended up on wanted posters. And I said, man, I'll never end up on that kind of poster. So when I developed the plan, I went from ending up on a wanted poster to being on a poster that has me around a lot of pretty much every school in Canton City and some of the other surrounding cities. I ended up on a poster like that. And it didn't happen overnight. It happened because I had to develop a plan, okay? I had to develop a plan. And my plan was, where do I want to be? Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And I found out at a young age that I really like sports. I really like sports. And I was like, man, this is my ticket. I know a lot of people, when I go and speak, they see it, it was like, man, what's that ring on your finger? I wear this ring every day because it reminds me of the plan that I set in life and how I said I was going to get to where I was going to be, and I actually got there. Because here's the thing, you can set a plan, but if you don't do this, to take the necessary steps to put it in motion, I'm telling you right now, it won't succeed. So I had to develop a plan, and my plan was, I wanted to go to college. I wanted to play professional football and basketball. We'll get into that story too. I was a really good basketball player, and I was like, man. So I didn't know. I ended up getting a full ride scholarship to the University of Kansas because I put my plan in motion. And when I got there, I said, I'm gonna try to be slick. Because I'm like, I averaged 30-something points a game in basketball. I'm gonna slide on in there and play basketball too. Yeah, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. But I still achieved my dream. I got to go. I never got on a plane until I got recruited for high school football. Never got on a plane because I grew up poor. I've had my lights cut off. We lost our home. I remember not having gas, and my mom we would have to boil some hot water, put it in the sink just so we could wash up. Those are the challenges that I had in my life, and I had to overcome those. And again, that when you put a plan, and I'm telling you right now, your circumstances, I always tell people, be a product of your decision, not your circumstances. Because my circumstances were grim. They were very grim. But my decisions would pull me through, okay? The decisions pull me through. And I'm thankful because I think when I work with a lot of teenage kids, and I see teenage kids, and I'm telling you, and raise your hand how many of you know kids that treat their friends better than they treat their parents? How many of you know that? Oh man, you want to know something that burns my fuel? Is when I see that. Man, that burns my fuel. Because how many of you in here have had friends back in the past that you're not friends with anymore? How many of you? Okay. So that same mama that raised you from birth, how many of you still taking care of you? How many of you still got your moms and got your dads? And yeah. So think about this. No matter what you do, whatever bonehead mistake and whatever accomplishment you make in life, who's gonna always be there for you? Your parents. Man, listen, you all got 100 on your quiz today. You all got 100, okay? Because I can tell you right now, and I was just telling them as I was coming up, my mom was calling me at 6 this morning. I wasn't even completely out the bed yet. And that's not normal for me because usually I'm up at 6. But she called me about 5:55. Oh my God. And I'm like, I seen it ringing, and I'm like, Mom, my mom called me 3 times. And I'm like, okay, I gotta answer this because something's wrong. My mom calls me, like, oh my God, I see you on the news this morning. And I'm like, oh yeah, Mom? I said, what, for what? She was like, you're Fox 8's person of the day. I said, okay, Mom, thank you. I love you, Mom. I'm gonna go back to bed. I gotta go back to sleep. My mom is so excited for me. I got a little clip, and this is actually my mom right here. Every time I get home from school, I would call her, let her know I was home, and she would like, I saw you in the paper today. I'll play it off.
So Lamar, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm getting text right now that the internet is down
Oh,
countywide.
okay. Hey, no problem.
Yes,
no problem.
Countywide, but
Okay.
we will find a way
Oh,
to
that's
get
no,
this
no
going.
problem. So, my mom was my biggest supporter, but guess who was also the hardest on me in life? It was my mom. Man, I am so thankful for my mom to this day. I'm so thankful for her because, like, I don't know what I would do, or I wouldn't be here in life if it wasn't for her. Okay? And I know as young adults, you have your parents, they are constantly on you because they only want the best for you. You have teachers here who love you and they on you. Okay? They have their education. Okay? And I can tell you, I'm supposed to be a teacher. They don't make a lot. Okay? They're here because of their love of teaching. And they're here to push you. And then sometimes you turn around and you'll see kids that were like, nah, oh, that teacher gets on my nerves. They're always picking on me because they expect the best out of you. They want the best for you. And sometimes you need that push in life. So here's my thing, because I have a small circle of friends. I have over 100,000 followers on social media. But I have a small circle of friends that I just hang out with constantly. And I can tell you, they push me all the time, and they hold me accountable because they're true friends. Because I can tell you right now, you have people in your circle right now who kind of be like, oh, you should do that. Knowing it's not right, but they're pushing you to do it. Is that really a friend? Do you think that's a friend? That somebody's pushing you to do something that you know is not right? Nah, that's not a friend. A friend is gonna hold you accountable and they're gonna check on it. And that goes for you too. Are you a friend that's gonna hold them accountable? Are you a true friend? Okay? Again, I wanna go back to my plan in life. My plan, when I got into my plan in life, my plan put me in a position where, one, I graduated. And that was the biggest thing. I was the first one in my family to graduate from college. Getting my degree was huge for me, okay? Because I found out too that in life, and I kept hearing people talk about it, one thing they'll never take away from me is my degree. I knew I was a great football player. I played at the University of Kansas. I was everything at my high school. I played for University of Kansas. I tried out for Miami Dolphins. I tried out for San Francisco 49ers. I tried out for the Browns. I made it through the 3-day camp and then they cut me. I played arena football. But the ultimate thing was guess what? You can't play football forever. But guess what they can never take away from you? What can they ever take away from you? Anybody? Nobody. Wake up. Come on, kids. Let's go. They can never take my education away from me. Never. Never, never, never. Okay? So, people see me today, and I'm gonna tell you, I went through a lot. Not only am I a police officer, because I tell you, this is how my mind works. Everybody looks at me like, oh, Officer Sharpe, he's a cool dude, I like him, but people don't understand all the other hats I wear. I'm a football coach at McKinley High School. I'm a president of a nonprofit organization. I have my own book publishing company. I'm an author, and I have 2 books out I'm working on. I'm working on my 3 more actually at the current time, which is very hard to do. And I don't recommend that for anybody. Do one at a time because you get your mind all over the place, especially like me. But I do a lot. I'm a grandfather. I'm a father of 6. All my kids are grown. I think my youngest son is 19, and he was that one that challenged me because he's that one that he lives with me because I'm trying to keep him on the right path. Okay, and he's made some bonehead mistakes. But guess what? To this day, I'm still his father. I love him, okay? I don't measure him with my other success of my other kids. I have another son that's right above him. He goes to Ashland University. He's in his junior year. He has a 3.9 grade point average and is getting ready, after he graduates, he's ready to go to med school, okay? So I'm proud of them all the same, okay? Proud of them all the same. Now my son did say he wanted to be a police officer, and I was kind of looking at him like, wait a minute. Listen, I did that. Why don't you do something different? Be a fireman. I don't know. Be a fireman. But again, whatever he wants to be, I'm a support him. Okay. And we down. Yeah. Okay. So I have my was this close, almost pulling the switch and getting it on Netflix. It was almost on Netflix. And I think it was very inspiring because it shows so much of what I've done and what I've been through. Because I can tell you too, and I say this because we're in a high school setting, and I'm very cautious of when I say these things, but I had to overcome a lot of things in my life and personally, okay? When I was young, I was sexually assaulted, okay, by a family friend. And I can tell you that I had these things stacked up on me in life. It's just stacked up on me. And I'm gonna tell you right now, when I look at some of my friends, I did a presentation just a few weeks ago at North Canton Middle School, and I do it about the dangers of drugs and vaping and all of that stuff. And I put this picture up on the wall, and when I put it up there, I have about 8 of my friends that I grew up with that are no longer here anymore because of drugs, alcohol, or some type of one of the above. And they grew up in the same neighborhood as I did. And they let the neighborhood weigh them down and bring them down to a point where they're no longer here anymore. And I refuse to be one of those people. How many of you have experienced some type of trials or tribulations in your life? And I know you're young, and you don't have to tell me what, but how many of you have experienced challenges in your life so far? Yeah, everybody should. If you sit up here and you tell me that you haven't experienced any trials or tribulations in your life, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not gonna buy it. You can't sell it to me, okay? So, how do you overcome those things? I mean, does anybody have a plan on how they overcome certain situations that are good or bad? Does anybody have a method? I'm gonna wake you up eventually. Are you stretching or are you raising that hand? Yeah, raising your hand? Okay. All right. Nobody has any methods they want to share? Because here's the other thing too. With my organization, I mentor over 60-something kids from the ages of 8 to 17. And one of the things that I do with our group is when we speak, when they want to say something, they stand up and they speak to me. Or we have a speaker, they stand up and speak. But they also know too is that there's no such thing as a dumb question or a dumb answer. Okay? We don't do that. Okay? We always want their minds working, circulating. Okay? Other thing too with our young men and young women is that I make be engaged in life. Because I remember I was that kid, kind of like how you are right now. I used to sit back there in the back and I'll just kind of be like this. Please don't pick on me. Please don't pick on me. But at the end of the day, you know, when I look at society, don't you want your voice to be heard? That's what I hear. I see a lot of. I see people, our young adults, they want to be heard. But you can't be heard if you don't say that. All right? Nobody will hear you. All right? Does anybody ever heard of me before or seen any of that? Okay. I know you. So, the way I live life to the fullest. Have I made some mistakes in my life? Absolutely. I've made some mistakes. But at the end of the day, I try to live life to the fullest. I try to make everybody around me a better person. That's my goal. I know people look at my social media, they look at my Facebook, they look at my Instagram, don't look at my TikTok. Please don't look at my TikTok. My TikTok is a whole different animal because I just feel like I could just act up and be wild but a good wild because I'm a funny person. Like I think I spent so much of my childhood being down and out that I didn't realize how much fun I could really have. And now I like to just have fun. So sometimes you get on my TikTok and you'll see something like, this guy is tripping. he's funny, he's a funny dude. I get that all the time. I go places now and I see a lot of people who be like, Officer Sharpe, and I'm like, I'm gonna change that's what I told her, I'm gonna change my name, that's gonna be my new name. Because everybody, even I got people in my family, hey, Officer Sharpe, I'm like, I'm your cousin, I grew up with you, why are you calling me that? You know what I'm saying? Why are you calling me that? Like, so, but I guess that's my new name. So, let's talk. Anybody have any questions for me? Because I don't like to ramble. And I know my video I was kind of setting up a point there, but that's okay, because technology, it just happens. But anybody have any questions for me? Yes.
You explained about overcoming all these hurdles, but
Mhm.
what was it about you or your circumstances that made you become successful? Because we talk about it so much, but yet, I used to be a social worker too. So many either take the victim role and not that they aren't victims of some things, but they take that role and they use that as an excuse to define their life and not push through that. Was there someone or just something about in your mind, what was it that it made that connection? I'm not gonna be in a gang, I'm not gonna do this. How do you get to that next step? Because so many people don't get that next step, they don't make the connection.
Yeah, so I was a victim. I was a victim of a few things. I remember even being bullied to a point where I had enough, and I was forced to have to fight somebody who he was held back a few times. He was a lot bigger than me, and he put me in a position where I found courage within myself a little bit because everybody was scared of him. But I think one of the things that helped me was one, having a mentor. I had somebody who believed in me. How many of you have somebody that you know believes in you? Okay, that's the first step. And how is your relationship with that person? Are you gravitating more to that person, or are you staying away from that person? You know, you're kind of distancing yourself from that person. Because here's the thing. The people, if you associate yourself around negativity, you're gonna bring that negativity into your life. Okay? You're gonna bring it into your life. I don't care what it is, it's just how it is. Okay? I always try to put myself in positions where I'm around people that are positive, people who believe in the same things, or they may not believe in the same things. I know, for instance, there's people who believe in the vaccine, some don't. And there's in my circle, but we're still friends. But we can agree to disagree. You know what I'm saying? So for me, the plan was I didn't want to be I didn't never want to be locked up. I never wanted to get locked up. And that was my other biggest fear, was being locked up in prison. Because I was seeing my friends going to jail. Like, they disappear and they'd be like, where are they at? And it was like, oh, they're on a summer vacation. And then come to find out they were locked up in juvenile jail. Like, what? I'm like, are you kidding? You need
Did these guys have?
No, they're in my class, so they can stay.
that's
Yeah,
right.
if you,
Okay, so do you guys want to go get your lunch? And you are more than welcome to come back.
Yeah, that's
Just
okay.
bring your food.
Okay.
Or you can just
I
head
have
down
them. I
there
have
whenever
some.
you want.
I
Okay.
just told in my Wi-Fi. I left my clothes in my little bag. I didn't even think about it. I was like, I wasn't sure. So I normally see right when you don't do it.
Well,
yes. All right. That's all right. So I'm sorry about the people that are in my life in a plan. I did not want to end up in prison, and I didn't want to die. I did not. It's a little different growing up in my neighborhood. I can tell you this because guess what? I understood that I did not want to put my mom through that pain. I did not want to put my mom through the pain of having to bury one of her children. Because I've been to funerals of my friends, and I sit there and I watch their parents, and that was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen in my life. Okay? I still have friends today whose parents are alive, and some of my friends have passed away. And I look at their parents, and I'm like, that's one of the worst pains you can probably ever go through as a parent. Because I can tell you that if I went through that, losing one of my children, I would be devastated. I lost my father about 5 years ago. 5 years ago. And I'm telling you, I still deal with that to this day. It hurts, you know, especially around Christmas time, because guess what? Guess whose birthday was on Christmas? My dad. Do you know all of the traditional things that we did? And I didn't even have a great relationship with my dad at one point in my life. But when he finally came back around, and I told him how I felt, we put all the past behind us. So that was some of those trials that we had together. And I was able to put that because I was mature. And I said, you know what, Dad, it is what it is. I said, ultimately, what I've learned is that I'm gonna be a dad one day, and I know what not to do. So, everything in life is a lesson. Oh man, I have so many lessons that I've learned in life, and I apply them to my life. They're here with me today. Everything I do. Everybody says, why are you so successful? Because of my life experiences. The experiences I had in life put me to a place where I'm successful today. So, my dad, Christmas baby, I struggle in December sometimes. It's getting better a little bit, but it's still hard for me. Especially now when I listen to the radio, because my dad, he loved to sing. I'm not a singer. I'm not a rapper either. I've rapped on some of my videos, and it's obvious that I'm not a rapper. A$AP Rocky and Kanye will not be coming to sign me. I know that, but it's okay, because I give it my all. But when I listen to the radio, I hear songs that my dad used to sing, and there's been times when I'm driving and I just start bawling in tears. This big dude, I'm 6'6", 280 pounds. I'm tough. You know, I played middle linebacker. I'm a tough dude. But I'm driving and I'm in tears because it just reminds me of my father. And I always tell you young adults, I'm like, listen, you cherish your parents. Because think about this. You think life is promised, you're promised to wake up tomorrow. You feel like everybody in the circle is promised to wake up tomorrow. I don't know if you've been noticing, there's a lot of people passing away lately, okay? So when you take these relationships for granted, I'm telling you, because my brother is a prime example. And I talk about my brother. I've had him in one of my things when I went to go speak. And my brother will tell you, my brother didn't get over the relationships, the things that my dad had did in the past. He felt like my dad abandoned him, which my dad kind of did. So my brother, as a grown man, started feeling some type of way, and he wouldn't call my dad. My dad would call him 5 or 6 times. My brother wouldn't answer. So when we found my dad, and we got the call that my dad passed away, guess who took it the hardest? My brother. My brother took it the hardest, and he took it the hardest because he thought he was promised tomorrow, and he wasn't. So my brother lives with that to this day. So I know for a fact that he cries in his car, or when he hears or he sees anything. I know for a fact for the last 5 years, on Christmas morning, he cries because he passed up that opportunity to have that relationship with my dad. So we had these lot of different things that went on in my life, but guess what? I didn't let them define who I was going to be. I see a lot of young adults who have bad relationships with their parents, and they decide to come out and they just feel like, well, I'm just going to wild out because nobody cares about me. It's not the move, because they do care. You just have to be open and willing to accept what they're trying to instill in you. My DNA is made up, and everything that I am today is made up of mostly of my mama and my grandma and my grandpa. Okay, life is short. My grandmother was born in 1905. 1905. She lived to be 102 years old. Okay, that's still a short life. When you really think about it, it's really a short life. So if you think of that 102, what's the average age span? What, 70, 60, 70, 80, maybe? Yeah, life is short. So what are you gonna do with your time while you're here? You gonna just ease through life? But when you ease through life, you take the easy route, I'm telling you, you're not gonna put yourself in a position to be where you wanna be. I've had to make a lot of sacrifices in my life, a lot. A lot. I'm still making sacrifices today, okay? But my plan is to keep pushing forward, and that's what I do. Does anybody have any other questions?
I'm back online, I don't know, Nick, I'm able to get into mine, but what made you choose to become a police officer out of everything?
Yeah, I did not want to be a police officer. I can tell you, when I grew up, I was in my neighborhood. I was thrown on my cruiser. I was thrown on a cruiser when I was in middle school because there was a fight, and we wanted to go watch it, but then we realized who was fighting, and we knew that they could start shooting and stabbing people, so we were like, yeah, how about we go the other way? So we walked the other way, and this cruiser popped up on us, and we fit the description. He threw us on the hood of his cruiser, and I remember being so scared. I remember crying because I was so angry. And in my neighborhood, the police were the enemy. They were on the other team. They didn't like us. They didn't like us. I talk about that in my documentary. I talk about it in my book. That I remember being in my yard because my mom didn't let me leave our yard because we lived in the projects. And she said, you can't leave the yard. So I was saying, all right, okay. So all my friends are riding their bikes, I can't leave the yard. So I'm standing there throwing my baseball in there, catching up with my mitt. And then I see a police officer, he's driving by looking at me, and he's tightening down his gloves. And I'm like, and I go in the house, because I don't want none of that smoke at all. I don't want it, you know? So I take my butt in the house. They instill that fear. But as I got older, I started working at Faircrest in the juvenile jail, and I realized, I was like, man, there's a lot of kids coming in here, and I'm talking about kids coming in from unruly to murder. And I'm looking here and I'm talking to these kids, and as I'm talking to them and they're out of that environment, that bad environment, and they're here, the sweetest kids in the world. They just need somebody to believe in them, somebody to care. And I'm sitting here and I'm chopping it up with them, and they have the utmost respect for me. Because I can tell you, when I worked there, we had about 4 different gangs at that time that were locked up in Faircrest. And the rule was, you were not allowed to let rival gangs out to take showers at the same time. Well, when I'm big, I know that, so that's probably part of the equation. But the other part was these kids respected me. Now they might go out and gangbang and do all these crazy things out in the streets, but when they was here, I tell them to stand here, and you know, part of the jail is you gotta stand there with your towel and you gotta wait till it's your turn to take a shower. And I'm talking about, I would have 2 rival gangs standing right behind, one behind another, standing there, and I dared them to fight, and they would. So you won't do that here, because that's what got you in here. So a lot of the police officers said, man, I don't know what you're doing to these kids, but they respect you. And I'm like, I'm just being real with them. I'm challenging them. And they was like, you need to take this test. And I'm like, to be the police? Yeah, that's a no for me, dog. That's a no for me, dog. I can't do that. But I was sitting there looking at it, I was like, well, how bad could it be? Or it's like, well, it is a little bit more money. But then it really hit me. You have an opportunity to do something different. You have an opportunity to do something that you wish you would have seen when you were younger. And I was like, that was it. I said, that's it, I'm about to do it. I took it, and I can tell you, when I took this job, so many police officers talked about me. Oh man, how many people did something and people talked about you? How many, anybody in here? Oh yeah, listen, they talked about me. Oh, look at the teddy bear cop. Oh, look at the candy cop. I'm like, okay. But while they was talking about me, I was out here making moves. I was out here getting out my cruiser, walking up on people's barbecues. Hey, how you doing? All right, you guys good? Okay. Shaking hands with people. Introducing myself to little kids. That's what I was out here doing, building relationships. And then turn around, years later, people inviting me to their weddings. People inviting me to cookouts, bar mitzvahs, whatever it is, they invite me to them. You know, they're inviting me because they built that relationship with me. Because again, I wasn't doing something that was normal, because I can tell you, he'll tell you, in Canton, it's rough. It's rough, okay? And I remember when I was coming on this job, there was a lot of times I was fighting. I had to fight people, and I couldn't even talk them out of it. They was looking at me and they drunk, and they're like, yeah, I want the big guy. And I'm like, me? Oh man, you gotta be kidding. Yeah, I want the big guy. Come on, let's go. And I'm like, man, you don't want to do this. But I can tell you, there was a span, especially working midnights, people were getting drunk. I was fighting every weekend. I was fighting somebody. I never had to prove my toughness to anybody. I know how tough I am. I got people that I had to tackle that knew how tough I was. They still know it. So I never worried or concerned myself what other people think. I still to this day, people look at me and be like, I don't like him. He the police. I don't care what he say. I don't care what he do. I don't care how he helps the community. I don't like him because he the police. Your problem, not mine. And that's a mentality you have to have. That's your problem if you don't like me. Because I could go in somewhere and they'd be like, oh, the pig, oh, and I'm like, oh, okay. Because guess what? When I lay my head down on my pillow at night, I'm gonna sleep like a baby. I'm not gonna worry about what you think about me, okay? And that's how you gotta attack, that's how you gotta approach life. People gonna talk about you, so what? I don't care. My mom used to always tell, I used to tell my mom, Mom, they keep talking about me because I didn't have a lot of clothes. I didn't have nice shoes. Mom, they keep talking about me. My mom's favorite thing was, they talk about Jesus. I was like, oh man. All right, I guess that's how it's gonna be. She always did, that was her first thing. They talked about Jesus. I was like, I can't never argue or win with my mom because I knew she was gonna go to the Bible. That was my mom. So, we up and rolling?
Officer Sharpe, you should be good.
Okay, let me see it.
Get out there on the floor, and I just yelled and screamed and everything, and I didn't want to embarrass my children, but I was so excited, just looking at all the things that he was doing.
Every time I get home from school, I would call her, let her know I was home, and she would, I saw you in the paper today. I'll play it off like, oh,
You did that this morning.
like I was.
And then I go to work the next day, everybody go to me, I saw Lamar in the article in the paper, I saw that article in the paper. I just felt so good. He has been such a blessing.
And she saved every article. Every article. Name the scrapbook. My senior year, I had so many scholarship offers from so many schools around the country. I chose to take my talents all the way to Kansas.
When I found out how far it was, I cried in the baby house. Oh my, I'll never forget that day. I cried so hard.
When I went to college, it was one of the greatest experiences.
So, that's my mom. And even when I still watch this, and I've watched this probably hundreds of times, I still smile and I feel so amazing just to see my mom and see her proud of me. And I'm telling you, that's the best gift for me in this world, is making my mom proud. Because I knew she made a lot of sacrifices for me to be where I'm at today. So, I think we was talking about challenges. I can tell you one of the biggest challenges I've seen probably about 4 years now, 3 or 4, about 4 years now, was the biggest challenge doing this job was my daughter. And it always still, to this day, I get emotional about it because I'm gonna set it up for you here. I know I'm running out of time, but I'm gonna set it up for you. And out of everything that I do, this is one of the hardest things sometimes for me to still talk about because I'm gonna let this play a little bit.
Feelings concerning the situation.
You can't tell somebody how to grieve. You don't know what it's like to lose family members, friends, cousins, best friends. You don't know what that's like to lose a countless amount. And a lot of times our family members or friends that we lost don't have graves. They don't have headstones yet. A lot of those things are so expensive.
That's another form of memorial,
And get.
Understood that they needed a gathering place. I myself don't agree with that, but I myself had somewhere to grieve. His friends decided to come to that spot because that was the last spot that they knew Jalen was alive.
At first, neighbors at 14th and Gibbs in Canton thought it was fireworks.
So we ended up going to the pole later that night. We had all the guys
Some girls with their babies and everything else just like down in the street. So there were a lot of people there in support for him.
Those at the vigil were remembering Jalen DeSenze, who was shot while driving at the same intersection Sunday morning.
It's just unfortunate that somebody took their space that was already tragic and made it even more tragic. I don't know, I just got this feeling and I just looked over my shoulder and I saw a car just sitting right there. And it was like as soon as I looked over my shoulder, that's when you heard the gunshots.
4 people at the vigil were hurt by the shots, but survived.
And I looked down and just the whole inside of my right leg is just bloody. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to call my mom. I don't want to call her. So the first thing that comes to my mind is, well, call your dad. It's like, what's going on? I'm like, Dad, I just need you to meet me at the hospital. I got shot, just come as quick as you can. And the guy, he's like just driving so crazy, trying to hurry up and get us to the hospital. I go up to the front desk and told them, I've been shot, I just need medical attention. And it actually was a surprise to me that I then was asked if it was gang related, if I had been involved with gang violence. They said, how long ago was I shot? They asked me questions that weren't, really comforting. It kind of was like, surprising. Like I thought that you guys would have been there to help, help support and comfort me at a time like this because it was nothing I ever saw myself going through. But then, a little bit later, once they saw who my father was, that's when I kind of started getting, the proper attention and, comfort from the staff there that I should have received before, even knowing who my father was.
Who was your dad?
My dad's Officer Lamar Sharpe.
Oh, man. I mean, as a father, my biggest fear is losing one of them. And everything I do is not to inconvenience their life, is to push them in the right direction so they can have a better life. And that call kind of just changes everything. It's one of those things you never think that can happen to you. And it does.
So, my daughter was at a vigil and she was shot. And I can remember, now this is during a point where I'm doing so much in the community. And I remember as a parent, my first instinct was, I had to literally sit myself down because my thoughts of growing up around violence in my neighborhood was I wanted to go and find who did this to my daughter. I was knocking on doors of gang members. What do you know? I wasn't in my uniform, but I was knocking on their door because they have respect for me. And they told me if I knew, man, I would tell you. You know I would tell you. And then I had to literally, what a lot of people don't do in life, sometimes you gotta step out and remove yourself from the situation real quick. Sit down and process your thoughts. Set aside the anger, set aside the hurt, and say, what is the right thing to do? And I remember in my mind going back to a place of saying, as a young man, whoever pulled that trigger, there's one young man I missed that I could have possibly helped and push them in the right direction. So it's amazing how when you can stop and remove yourself and you can sit down and think about things and process things, because sometimes we get angry, we get mad, and guess what we do? We act off that impulse, right? We act off of it, and the next thing you know it, you find yourself in a bigger hole than what you should be in. So I had to stop and remove myself, okay? Because one, I was like, my daughter's alive, she's here. She's here. And what is it gonna do if I'm going out here trying to just knock on people's doors and I find myself in a situation and I end up in prison, throwing away everything I've ever worked for, everything my mom instilled in me. Yeah. So sometimes you gotta stop and think. So that was one of the hardest things for me to deal with in my life. That was one of those adversities because at that moment in time, I also felt, is what I'm doing, is it even helping? Is it even working? But I learned too in mentoring, it's not about, everybody gets into nonprofits and mentoring because they want to see that instant success. When you've been doing this for 20 years and you see grown men and grown women come back to you and say thank you, because you're not going to see it right away. You're not going to see it right away. Some of you have teachers in here right now that you're going to look back when your mind matures even more, and you're going to be like, that teacher was awesome. They did everything to make sure that I succeed. Because then you'll be like me, you're going to go back to that school and you're going to be like, you're going to go up there and you're going to hug that teacher and say thank you. You know? You're going to go back and hug your mom and say thank you. Go back and hug your dad, your grandma, whoever it is, you're going to say thank you. Because as your mind matures. So, any more questions?
So we're just about at the end
Okay,
of our time,
okay.
but before these young folks leave you, juniors and seniors, right? And, you know, all this pressure on having the rest of their life figured out and what are their next steps and all of this, and I see that head bobbing up, right? Like there's so much of it. What advice do you have for them as they, you know, begin to step out into the world beyond high school?
Understand that everything you do today can affect you tomorrow, you know? I always tell people to find out the things that you love to do. I just like everybody pushes college on everybody. And I just don't agree with that. I don't believe in that. Because college isn't for everybody. I found that out with my son. I knew it, but I wanted to believe in my son, and I paid to send him to Ashland too. And he only lasted a semester. And he came to me, he said, Dad, college just isn't for me. I have too much freedom. I was like, I had the option. I didn't have you or mom telling me I need to go to school. So I went to school when I want to, and there you go. So now my son is looking at, he's talking about trades and even thinking about maybe going and joining the Air Force. So find out what it is that you love to do. Because that's the thing, because here's the thing, you might have to do this for the rest of your life. You want to be happy with it. You want to be happy about it, right? Okay, and sometimes things just happen to really fall in your lap. Because I could tell you, I told you, I didn't want to be the police. There was no way. If you'd told me I would have had a career as a policeman when I was younger, I would have bet the whole ranch on it. Because it just wasn't in my future. And sometimes you stumble across the things that you love to do. All right? So just kind of prepare yourself. One, first and foremost, get your education. Get your education here. Get your education now. Explore. And understand too is like, again, you're not gonna be 19 years old and be some billionaire executive. You know what I'm saying? It's just not, it just doesn't happen that way. And it's very small. That percentage is like probably in single digits, if that. Maybe got a decimal in front of it too, okay? But find out what it is that you love and then plan on achieving it. Have a plan for it. You may wanna have your own business. Have a plan for it, okay? You don't have to go to college. You might be in a trade school. You might go to, my daughter, she went to cosmetology school because she knew college wasn't for her. Well, she did go to college and she found out college wasn't for her and she went to cosmetology school. And she does well for herself. She moved out, matter of fact, that one right there, she moved out to Vegas. And actually, she was traumatized that when she was at Bowling Green, she couldn't go back. She suffers from PTSD now. And from everything from her getting shot. So she stayed with me for a while because she felt safe. And then she said, I gotta get out of here. So she ended up going to Vegas and she loves it. And I have a place to go visit her. And have fun. So, yeah.
Guys, before you, well, first of all, can we thank
anybody wants cards or posters, anything, maybe have a little brother, little sister, they probably follow. You listen, I might not be cool to you, but I might be cool to your little brother or sister, okay? And they probably follow me on TikTok too. So that's my dude. So if you want one or anything, I got you.
And then if you guys have your cell phone, if you'll just snap the QR code on one of the posters that you see around the room, so that we can kind of keep track of who we had in these. That would be great. So there's one on the
Very
door,
soon, yep.
closets.
Thanks, guys. I will see you tomorrow back in the classroom. Have a wonderful day.